The security badge beeped red at 8:30 am. I was locked out. 15 minutes later, every system at Berkshire Digital Marketing went dark. 80 employees couldn't access email. Client campaigns were frozen. The managed services team Damien brought in to replace me stood there helpless, and my phone started ringing. "Mia, we have a serious problem. Everything's down. We're dead in the water." It was Damien, the same vice president who'd pushed me out yesterday. The same man who tried to steal my domain infrastructure at 6:47 this morning. The same executive who had no idea that the security system he just triggered belonged to my private company, not his. "Can you fix it?" His voice was shaking. I looked at my coffee, took a sip, then I said the words he never expected to hear. "I'm no longer your employee, but Cascade Technical Solutions offers emergency services. $5,000 plus $250 per hour. What he didn't know was that 4 years ago, I'd made one decision that would save me. And this morning, that decision was about to cost him everything. Stories like these don't just happen in movies. Sometimes the underestimated actually do get the last word, and when they do, it's worth sharing. Welcome to the Payback Office channel, where workplace justice isn't just a fantasy. If you've ever felt overlooked, undervalued, or pushed aside, you're in the right place. These stories remind us that integrity and preparation can be powerful allies. Before we dive deeper, if you enjoy watching people who play dirty games win dirty prizes, hit that subscribe button. We're on our way to 8,000 subscribers, and your support means everything. Plus, you'll never miss a story where the overlooked become the unforgettable. My name is Mia, and until this morning, I was the Director of Technology Infrastructure at Berkshire Digital Marketing, an agency in Seattle. I didn't come from money or connections. My parents ran a small hardware store in Tacoma, and they taught me that understanding people's struggles isn't about where you start. It's about keeping your heart open along the way. That empathy shaped everything about how I led my team. Now, let me take you back 6 months, because that's when the first cracks started to show. Berkshire Digital Marketing had been my professional home for 9 years. I started as a junior IT analyst, barely knowing the difference between a server rack and a network switch. But I learned fast, stayed late, asked questions, and most importantly, I genuinely cared about solving problems. Not just technical ones. I cared about the people behind the help desk tickets, the frustrated account managers, the anxious executives who thought the cloud was something only meteorologists should worry about. By year 3, I was managing the entire IT infrastructure. By year 5, I'd rebuilt our security protocols from the ground up after a ransomware scare that nearly cost us everything. By year 7, the founders, Andrew and Caroline Berkshire, trusted me with decisions that affected every corner of the company. Then Andrew had a heart attack. It was mild, his doctors said, but it scared him enough to start thinking about retirement. Caroline had already been scaling back, spending more time at their place in San Diego. They brought in consultants, restructured the executive team, and started interviewing candidates for a new vice president of operations who could eventually take over the whole company. That's when Damien Cross entered our lives. His resume was impressive. Stanford MBA, 10 years at a Fortune 500 tech company, a reputation for operational excellence and strategic restructuring. During his interview phase, he toured the office with the kind of confidence that made people either admire him or distrust him immediately. I fell into the latter category, but I kept my opinions to myself. We had 3 brief interactions during his interviews. The first time, he asked me how many people were on my team. 4 full-time, 2 contractors, I told him. He nodded like he was doing mental math, which made my stomach tighten. The second time, he wanted to know our annual IT budget. I gave him the number. He whistled low and said, "We'll definitely need to optimize that." The third time, he didn't ask me anything. He just looked around the server room and said, "Seems like a lot of redundancy here." Redundancy, that word haunted me for weeks. Damien got the job. He started on a Monday in late September, and by Wednesday, he'd already scheduled one-on-one meetings with every department head. Mine was set for Thursday at 2. I prepared a presentation covering our infrastructure, security measures, disaster recovery protocols, ongoing projects, and future recommendations. I walked into that conference room with data, charts, and 9 years of institutional knowledge. He barely looked at it. "Mia, right?" he said, even though my name was on the meeting invite, on my email signature, and on the nameplate outside my office. "That's right. Let me be direct. I've reviewed the financials, and your department is one of the largest cost centers in this company. I need to understand what we're getting for that investment." I walked him through everything. The cloud migration I'd led that reduced our hardware costs by 30%. The security infrastructure that had protected us from 4 major breach attempts in the last year alone. The custom integrations I'd built between our project management systems and client portals, which saved our account managers 15 hours a week. He listened with his arms crossed. When I finished, he leaned back and said, "Here's my concern. A lot of this feels like empire building. 4 full-time employees plus contractors for a company of 80 people. That math doesn't work for me. Our teams work across 6 states with clients in 14 different industries. The infrastructure requirements are complex. Or maybe they've been made complex to justify headcount." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm going to bring in an outside firm to do an assessment. Fresh eyes, no offense." "None taken," I lied. The outside firm arrived 2 weeks later. 3 guys in identical polo shirts with a company logo I'd never heard of. They asked basic questions, ran some automated scans, and spent most of their time in the break room on their phones. Their report, delivered a week later, recommended consolidating my team's responsibilities, outsourcing our help desk, and eliminating 2 full-time positions. One of those positions was mine. Well, not eliminated exactly. Restructured into a part-time consulting role, the report said, translation pushed out. I sat in Damien's office while he explained this to me with the kind of false sympathy that made my teeth hurt. "This isn't personal, Mia. It's about efficiency. The company needs to be leaner, more agile. Your contributions have been valuable, but we're moving in a different direction." "Different direction? Corporate speak for we don't want you anymore." "What about my team?" I asked. "We'll retain 2 of your analysts. The contractors won't be renewed, and we're partnering with a managed services provider for ongoing support." "A managed services provider who'll charge triple what my team costs and won't understand our systems." His expression hardened. "That's not your concern anymore. Your last day will be December 15th. We're offering a severance package, 3-month salary, continuation of benefits. Sign the agreement by next week, and we'll add an extra month." I didn't sign it next week. I didn't sign it at all. Instead, I went home and did something I probably should have done years earlier. I called my college roommate, Jessica, who'd become a corporate attorney. Over coffee that Saturday, I laid out everything. The assessment that felt like a hit job. The restructuring that seemed designed to push me out. The fact that I'd built critical systems that nobody else fully understood. "Do you have documentation of your work?" Jessica asked. "Every project, every email, every decision memo. I keep detailed records." "Good. What about intellectual property? Did you sign anything when you started that assigned your work to the company?" I thought back to my hiring paperwork 9 years ago. Standard employment agreement. My work product belongs to Berkshire. "What about things you built outside of work, on your own time, with your own resources?" That's when I remembered. 4 years ago, I'd gotten frustrated with the limitations of our domain hosting provider. We were paying too much for too little control, and I wanted to implement some custom security features that weren't possible under their restrictions. So I did something unconventional. I created a private limited liability company. Just me, a simple business entity registered in Washington state. I called it Cascade Technical Solutions. Through that LLC, I purchased our primary domain name and set up our email servers on infrastructure I built and maintained personally. I did it on weekends, using my own equipment, my own money. Then I leased it back to Berkshire at cost. No markup, no profit. I just wanted control and flexibility to keep the company safe. Andrew and Caroline knew about it. They'd signed a service agreement with Cascade Technical Solutions 4 years ago. It seemed like a smart arrangement at the time. They got better service for the same price, and I got the technical freedom to build something truly secure. But here's the thing. That service agreement had a clause. If either party wanted to terminate the arrangement, they had to provide 90 days written notice. And the domain, the email infrastructure, the authentication systems that everything ran through, those belonged to Cascade Technical Solutions. They belonged to me. I hadn't thought about that clause in years. It was just paperwork filed away in a drawer at home. But sitting there with Jessica, watching her read through the agreement I'd pulled from my files, I saw her smile. Mia, do you understand what this means? That I own the domain. You don't just own the domain. You own the keys to their entire digital kingdom. Their email, their client portal, their authentication system. If you wanted to, you could shut down every single digital operation they have. My heart started racing, but I wouldn't do that. That's unethical. Of course you wouldn't do it maliciously, but you have leverage, serious leverage. If they're going to push you out, they need to understand what they're actually pushing out. We spent the next 2 hours strategizing. Jessica drafted a letter to Damien and the Berkshires, politely reminding them of the service agreement with Cascade Technical Solutions and the 90-day notice requirement. She kept the tone professional, even friendly. Just a courtesy reminder about existing contractual obligations. I sent it the following Monday. The response came fast, too fast. Damien called me into his office within an hour of receiving the email. His face was red, his jaw tight. What is this supposed to be? Some kind of threat? It's a reminder about an existing contract. I built that infrastructure on my own time with my own resources. Berkshire has been leasing it under a service agreement for 4 years. If you want to end my employment, that's your choice. But the service agreement requires 90 days notice from either party. This is extortion. No, it's a contract that your predecessors signed. I'm happy to continue the arrangement, or we can discuss a transition plan. But it needs to follow the terms we all agreed to. He stared at me like I'd just spoken in a foreign language. You can't hold the company hostage. I'm not holding anyone hostage. I'm pointing out that if you want to eliminate my position, there are technical dependencies that need to be addressed properly. Give me 90 days to document everything, train whoever you're bringing in, and ensure a smooth transition. I could see him calculating, trying to find a way around this. Finally, he said, I need to discuss this with our legal team. Of course, I'll be at my desk. The next week was tense. Damien barely acknowledged me in the hallways. My team asked if everything was okay. I told them honestly that I didn't know. Andrew and Caroline called me in for a meeting. They looked tired. Mia, we had no idea this would turn into a conflict, Caroline said. When you set up Cascade, it seemed like a win-win. It was, it still can be. I just want to make sure the transition is handled correctly. Andrew nodded. Damien is concerned about the company's vulnerability. He feels like we're dependent on a single person. You've been dependent on me for 9 years, I said quietly. That didn't seem to bother anyone until now. Caroline had the grace to look uncomfortable. What would make this right for you? I'd thought about this question every night since the meeting with Jessica. What did I actually want? My job back, a better severance, an apology. 6 months salary, full benefits continuation for a year, and a glowing reference. In exchange, I'll give you 120 days to transition everything. I'll document every system, train the new team, and make sure Berkshire doesn't skip a beat when I leave. They agreed. Damien wasn't happy about it, but he was outvoted. I got the revised offer in writing by the end of the week. December 15th became March 15th. The severance package tripled, and I got to leave on my terms. Or so I thought. The next 3 months were strange. I showed up every day, did my work, trained Damien's new managed services team. They were fine, competent enough, but they didn't know Berkshire. They didn't know that the creative director on the 3rd floor always forgot his password, or that the database server had a quirk that required a specific restart sequence, or that our biggest client needed special firewall rules for their security requirements. I documented all of it anyway. Page after page of processes, passwords, configurations. I handed it over like I was surrendering territory, which I suppose I was. Damien watched me like a hawk. He attended every training session, asked pointed questions, made little comments about efficiency and modernization. I smiled and nodded and counted down the days. Then something happened that changed the dynamic completely. It was February 10th, almost exactly 1 month before my departure date. Berkshire was pitching a massive account, a national retail chain looking to completely overhaul their digital marketing strategy. The pitch was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon. The entire creative team had been working on it for weeks. The presentation was stored on our cloud servers, with live demos running through our client portal system. At 1:47 p.m., everything crashed. Not just the presentation, everything. Email went down. The client portal displayed error messages. File shares became inaccessible. The managed services team that Damien had brought in to replace me scrambled, making frantic phone calls to their main office. I was at my desk when Damien appeared, practically running down the hallway. "Mia, we have a catastrophic problem. Nothing's working, and we have the Redwood retail pitch in 13 minutes. "What happened?" "I don't know. Your replacement team says it's a DNS failure, whatever that means. Can you fix it?" I pulled up my admin access to the Cascade infrastructure. There it was. Someone from the managed services team had attempted to optimize the DNS configuration without understanding what they were doing. They'd essentially broken the roadmap that told every system where to find every other system. "How long to fix it?" Damien asked, his voice rising. 30 minutes, maybe 45. "The pitch is in 12 minutes. Then you should probably reschedule." His face went purple. "This is a $14 million account. We can't reschedule." "I can't fix broken infrastructure in 12 minutes. Nobody can." He slammed his hand on my desk. "This is sabotage. You did this on purpose." Before I could respond, Caroline appeared in the doorway. "Damien, what's going on? The client just arrived in the lobby." "Her systems are down. The whole pitch is inaccessible." Caroline looked at me. "Mia." The managed services team made unauthorized changes to the DNS configuration. "I can fix it, but not in the next 10 minutes. She closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, she was all business. "How much of the pitch can we do offline?" "The creative deck is on Taylor's laptop," I said. "She downloaded it yesterday to work from home. You won't have the live demos, but you'll have the core presentation." Caroline nodded. "Damien, go find Taylor. Get that laptop to the conference room. I'll stall the client." He left without another word to me. Caroline lingered. "Can you really fix this?" "Yes." "How long?" 40 minutes if nothing else is broken." "Do it, please." She left and I got to work. The managed services team had created a mess, but it was a fixable mess. I methodically undid their changes, tested each connection, verified each route. 37 minutes later, everything was back online. I sent a brief email to Caroline and Damien. "Systems restored. Recommend the managed services team consult with existing IT staff before making infrastructure changes." The pitch went forward. They got the account. And I got an apology from Andrew, but notably not from Damien. The managed services team became more cautious after that, asking me questions before touching anything critical. But the damage to their credibility was done. I could see it in how Damien looked at me now. Not with anger, but with something worse. Resentment. I'd saved the day, and he hated me for it. March 14th was my last official day. My team took me to lunch. They gave me a card and a gift certificate to a bookstore. We talked about everything except the fact that I was being pushed out to make room for consultants who'd already proven they didn't know what they were doing. That night, I went home and sent one final email to Damien, Andrew, and Caroline. It was professional and brief. "As of tomorrow, my employment with Berkshire Digital Marketing concludes. Per our agreement, I've provided comprehensive documentation and training. I want to remind you that the service agreement with Cascade Technical Solutions remains in effect until properly terminated with 90 days written notice. As I have not received such notice, Cascade will continue to provide domain and infrastructure services under the existing terms. Best wishes for the future. I hit send and closed my laptop. The next morning, I woke up at my usual time. Force of habit. I made coffee, checked my personal email, and saw 3 messages from my old work address. All bounced back. Authentication failed. Confused, I logged into the admin panel for the Cascade infrastructure. Everything was offline. Not just offline, completely reconfigured. Someone had attempted to take over the domain, change the DNS settings, and lock me out of the systems I'd built. My phone rang. Jessica. Mia, did you shut down Berkshire Systems? What? No, someone locked me out. Well, someone shut everything down, and they think it's you. I just got a very aggressive call from their lawyer threatening legal action. I pulled up my logs. There it was. At 6:47 this morning, someone with Damien's credentials had attempted to force a domain transfer, but they didn't have the authorization codes. They didn't have access to the registrar account. And when the automated security system detected the unauthorized access attempt, it did exactly what I'd programmed it to do 4 years ago. It shut everything down. Every email server, every authentication system, every single service that ran through that domain went into lockdown mode. It was designed to protect against hostile takeovers and hacking attempts. Apparently, it couldn't tell the difference between a hacker and a vice president who thought he was smarter than he actually was. I looked at the clock. 8:17 a.m. Berkshire's workday started at 8:30. In 13 minutes, 80 employees were going to show up and discover that nothing worked. No email, no client portals, no access to shared drives. Nothing. My phone rang again. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize. Mia, this is Damien. We have a serious problem. Good morning to you too. Cut the attitude. Something's wrong with the systems. Nothing's working. Did you do this? No, but I can see in my logs that someone tried to force a domain transfer at 6:47 this morning using your credentials. The security system interpreted that as a hostile takeover attempt and initiated a lockdown. Silence, then can you fix it? I'm no longer an employee of Berkshire Digital Marketing. As of yesterday, I don't work for you. Mia, please, we have client meetings. Deadlines. The Redwood campaign launches today. We need email. I let the silence stretch. Part of me wanted to help. 9 years of caring about that company doesn't just evaporate overnight. But another part of me, the part that had been dismissed and devalued and pushed out, wanted him to squirm. The service agreement with Cascade Technical Solutions is still active, I said finally. Cascade can provide emergency support, but there's a fee structure for after-hours assistance. What kind of fee? For emergency system recovery, $5,000 plus my standard hourly rate of $250 per hour. That's robbery. That's the market rate for emergency IT services. Check with your managed services provider. They'll tell you the same thing. Probably charge you more actually, since they don't have access to any of the back-end systems. I could hear him breathing hard on the other end of the line. Fine, do it. Send me the invoice. I'll need a signed agreement first. I'll have my attorney send it over. Should take about an hour to draft. An hour? Mia, people are showing up right now. They can't work. We're dead in the water. Then I suggest you explain to them why you tried to take over systems without proper authorization on my last day of employment. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from something else. Power, maybe, or just the satisfaction of finally being the one who got to set the terms. Jessica called back 5 minutes later, laughing. Their lawyer just called again. He's authorized to agree to your emergency services fee. I'm drafting the agreement now. Simple scope. Restore systems to operational status. Payment due immediately upon completion. Sound good? Sounds perfect. She sent over the agreement by 8:45. Damien signed it electronically at 8:52. By then, Berkshire's office was in full chaos. My former teammate, Justin, texted me a play-by-play. Everyone's freaking out. Account managers are calling clients from personal phones. The creative team can't access any campaign files. Damien just yelled at the managed services guys in the middle of the office. This is insane. Another text came through. Wait, he's on the phone. Looks like he's about to have a heart attack. Is he calling you? I didn't respond. Instead, I took my time, not to be cruel, just thorough. I verified the agreement was signed, confirmed the payment terms with Jessica, made a fresh cup of coffee. Then I sat down and started working. First, I accessed the security logs and documented everything. Every failed login attempt, every configuration change, the exact timestamp when Damien's credentials triggered the lockdown. I saved it all, backed it up, and sent a copy to Jessica, just in case. Then I began the recovery process. It wasn't quick. The lockdown protocol I designed was comprehensive, specifically to prevent exactly what Damien had tried to do. I had to manually verify each system, reset authentication tokens, and carefully bring everything back online in the correct sequence. At 9:15, Justin texted again. People are just sitting around. Someone ordered pizza. This feels like a snow day except everyone's stressed. Damien keeps pacing. At 10:30, email was restored. Justin's next text, emails back, people are literally cheering. Damien just went into his office and slammed the door. By 11:15, the client portals were accessible. By noon, everything was back to normal. I sent a brief status report to Damien. All systems restored. Root cause was unauthorized domain transfer attempt at 6:47 a.m. Security protocols functioned as designed. Invoice attached. The invoice was itemized. $5,000 emergency response fee, 3.5 hours at $250 per hour. Total, $5,875. He called me 6 minutes later. Everything's working now. Yes. And this won't happen again. Not unless someone tries to forcibly take over the domain again without proper authorization. The security system did exactly what it was supposed to do. Another long silence. We need to end this arrangement. Berkshire needs to own its own infrastructure. I agree completely. Per the service agreement, you can terminate with 90 days written notice. Have your lawyer send the formal notice to Cascade Technical Solutions, and we'll begin the transfer process. 90 days. That's what the contract says. You're welcome to review it with your legal team. And you'll charge us for those 90 days. The current monthly service fee is $1,200. So yes, 3 months would be $3,600, plus any additional support requests beyond basic maintenance. I could practically hear his teeth grinding. Fine, you'll have the termination notice by end of business today. Perfect. Oh, and Damien? The invoice for today's emergency services is due upon receipt. Cascade's payment terms are net zero for emergency work. He hung up without responding. The termination notice arrived at 4:37 p.m. formal, legal, and exactly what I needed. 90 days starting March 16th, ending June 14th. Over the next 3 months, I provided exactly what the contract required. Basic maintenance, security updates, nothing more. When they had questions, I responded within the contractually obligated timeframe, usually 24 hours. When they wanted additional help, I sent them quotes. Most of the time, they declined and tried to figure it out themselves. I watched from a distance as their managed services team struggled. Response times got slower. Small problems became big ones. 2 of their biggest clients complained about system outages. One actually left for a competitor. Then in late April, Justin called me, not texted, called. Mia, you need to hear this. All hell is breaking loose. What happened? Redwood Retail. Remember that $14 million account? They just fired us. Their entire campaign got delayed because our systems went down twice in 1 week. The managed services team couldn't fix it fast enough. Redwood's CMO told Andrew they can't trust an agency that can't keep its own technology running. How much of a hit is that for Berkshire? Huge. That account was going to be 30% of our revenue this year. Andrew's furious. Caroline came back from San Diego for an emergency board meeting. And get this, they're auditing all of Damien's decisions since he started. Why? Someone in accounting noticed irregularities, personal expenses being charged to the company card, a lot of them. 3 days later, Andrew called me. Not Damien, Andrew. Mia, I owe you an apology. Several, actually. You don't owe me anything. We had an agreement, I'm fulfilling it. That's not what I mean. I should never have let Damien push you out. You built something remarkable here, and I didn't appreciate it until it was gone. His words were kind, but they didn't change anything. I appreciate you saying that. Is there any chance you'd consider coming back? We could restructure Damien's role, create a chief technology officer position for you, give you real authority. I'd thought about this moment, imagined it actually. The vindication of being asked to return. But sitting there on my couch, looking out at the Seattle skyline, I realized I didn't want it. Andrew, I'm grateful for the 9 years I spent at Berkshire. I learned a lot, grew a lot, but that chapter's closed. I'm building something new now. Cascade and more. Turns out there are a lot of mid-sized companies who need someone to build infrastructure they can actually rely on. Someone who cares about the people, not just the systems. He sighed. I understand. If you ever change your mind, the door's open. What's going to happen with Damien? Andrew was quiet for a moment. That's being handled. Let's just say his time at Berkshire is coming to an end. 2 weeks later, I got a message on LinkedIn from Justin. He'd left Berkshire shortly after I did. Mia, you need to hear this. Damien got fired yesterday. Turns out he'd been billing personal expenses to the company. Someone in accounting flagged it, they did an audit, and found about $40,000 in fraudulent charges. Andrew walked him out personally. Security packed his desk while he watched. It was brutal, thought you'd want to know. I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me felt vindicated. The guy who'd pushed me out for not being efficient enough had been stealing from the company, but mostly I just felt tired. Tired of the drama. Tired of proving myself. I closed LinkedIn and opened my email. Cascade Technical Solutions had 3 new client inquiries that week. Small companies, 20 to 50 employees, all looking for someone who could build them infrastructure that actually worked, who could explain technology without talking down to them, who saw IT as service, not just a cost center. I responded to each one personally, set up calls, started building proposals. June 14th arrived. The service agreement officially ended. I transferred the domain to Berkshire's ownership, handed over all the admin credentials, and sent a final status report. Professional, complete, done. But the story didn't end there. By the end of summer, Cascade had 12 clients. By fall, 20. I hired Justin to help with implementations. Then I brought on another former colleague, Amy, to handle client relations. We rented a small office in Fremont. Nothing fancy. Just enough space for the 3 of us and room to grow. One afternoon in October, I was meeting with a potential new client when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I ignored it. The voicemail came through 5 minutes later. Mia, this is Damien Cross. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to talk to you. It's important. Please call me back. I deleted it without a second thought. He called again the next day, and the day after that. Finally, I answered. What do you want, Damien? I need to apologize, and I need to explain some things. There's nothing to explain. You pushed me out, it backfired, and now you're dealing with consequences. We're done. Just give me 5 minutes, please. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him for coffee. He looked different, thinner, tired. The confident swagger was gone. I screwed up, he said as soon as we sat down. Everything at Berkshire. The way I treated you, the way I treated your team. I thought I was optimizing the business, but I was just protecting my ego. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm trying to rebuild my career, and I keep running into the same problem. People ask me about Berkshire, about why I left after only 6 months. The truth is, I got fired for cause. It's on my record. But the real reason I failed there was because I didn't understand what you understood. Which is what? That technology isn't about systems, it's about people. The people using it, managing it, depending on it. I treated your department like a spreadsheet line item. You treated it like a service to humans. That's why Cascade is succeeding, and I'm sitting here unemployed." I didn't know what to say. This wasn't the conversation I'd expected. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he continued. "I don't deserve it, but I wanted you to know that what happened taught me something important, and I wanted to say I'm sorry for all of it." I almost laughed. "You're asking me for a job?" "No, I know that bridge is burned. But if you ever hear of someone looking for an operations person who's learned some hard lessons about humility and actually listening to technical experts, keep me in mind." I didn't make any promises, but I also didn't say no. 1 year after that morning when my badge wouldn't work, I was sitting in my own office, running my own company, working with clients who valued what I brought to the table. Not because they had to, but because they chose to. My parents came to visit the new office on a Saturday. Dad walked around, looking at the server racks, the workstations, the whiteboard covered in network diagrams. Mom just hugged me. "You did it, sweetheart, built something real." I had good teachers. You and Dad showed me that honest work and treating people right actually matters. Dad smiled. "We also taught you not to let people push you around. Seems like you learned that lesson too." I thought about Damien, about that morning he locked me out, about the panic in his voice when he realized what he'd done. Sometimes the best response to someone trying to shut you down is to show them what you're actually capable of. The following Monday, I got an email that made me laugh out loud. It was from Caroline Berkshire. "Mia, I hope you're well. Andrew and I are fully retiring next month. We're selling Berkshire Digital Marketing to a firm in Portland. As we've been going through our files, I keep thinking about how much you contributed to this company. Your integrity, your skill, your patience with all of us. I know things ended badly, and I take responsibility for not standing up for you when it mattered. I'm proud of what you've built with Cascade. If you ever need a reference or just want to grab coffee and talk shop, please reach out. You deserved better from us. Warmly, Caroline." I wrote back that afternoon. Short, gracious, no bitterness. Because here's what I'd learned over that year. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick. Damien's choices caught up with him. Andrew and Caroline had to live with their decision to trust the wrong person. And me, I got to move forward. Cascade kept growing. We developed a reputation for being the IT company that actually cared. That showed up. That built relationships, not just networks. Within 2 years, we had 45 clients across Washington and Oregon. We expanded into cybersecurity services, started offering training programs for small businesses. I still think about that morning sometimes. Standing at those glass doors, watching the security light blink red, feeling that initial shock of rejection. At the time, it felt like the worst professional moment of my life. Turns out it was the beginning of the best one. Here's what nobody tells you about workplace situations like these. The real satisfaction isn't in watching someone else fail. It's in building something so solid, so valuable, that their opinion of you becomes completely irrelevant. Damien thought he could erase me with a restructuring plan and a severance package. Instead, he accidentally freed me to become his competition. And that infrastructure I built, the one he tried to take over, it became the foundation for everything Cascade does now. Every security protocol, every redundancy system, every careful backup procedure. I built it right the first time because I cared about protecting people. That same philosophy drives every decision I make now. Last month, I spoke at a technology conference in San Francisco. The topic was building resilient infrastructure for growing companies. After my presentation, a young woman approached me. She looked nervous. "Hi, I'm Emma. I just wanted to say thank you. I'm the IT director at a digital agency, and my new CEO keeps talking about outsourcing everything. Your story gave me hope that standing up for what I've built isn't crazy." I gave her my card. "It's not crazy, but document everything, know your worth, and make sure you understand what leverage you actually have. Don't be afraid to use it, but use it smart." She thanked me 3 more times before leaving. I watched her go and thought about myself from 9 years ago, the junior analyst who just wanted to solve problems and help people. That version of me would have been terrified of conflict, would have signed whatever severance they offered, would have walked away quietly. But that version of me also didn't know what she was capable of yet. The thing about being underestimated is that it gives you time to prepare. While Damien was planning his restructuring, I was quietly sitting on a contract that gave me control of their entire digital infrastructure. I didn't create that situation to gain leverage. I created it because I cared about doing things right. The leverage was just a side effect of competence. Now, when I train my team at Cascade, I tell them the same thing. Build systems like you're going to have to defend them someday. Document like someone's going to question your decisions. Treat people well, not because it's strategic, but because it's right. And never, ever assume that the quiet person in the corner doesn't have cards you can't see. 3 years after leaving Berkshire, I ran into Andrew at a coffee shop in Pioneer Square. We chatted for a few minutes. He told me the Portland firm that bought Berkshire had gutted most of what made it special. A lot of the longtime employees had left. The company culture was completely different. "Do you ever regret how things went?" he asked me. I considered the question honestly. I regret that it had to go that way, but I don't regret where it led me. Cascade wouldn't exist if I'd stayed comfortable. He nodded slowly. "For what it's worth, letting you go was the biggest mistake I made in 30 years of running that company." I appreciate you saying that, but honestly, Andrew, it worked out exactly how it needed to. We parted ways cordially. I meant what I said. No bitterness, no what-ifs. Just acceptance that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you professionally is actually the push you needed to become who you were meant to be. Cascade Technical Solutions now has 18 employees, 73 clients, and a reputation that brings in referrals faster than we can handle them. We're not the biggest IT firm in Seattle. Probably never will be. But we're known for being the most reliable, the most ethical, the most human. And that morning, when Damien locked me out, when he panicked at 8:35, demanding to know who shut down the systems, that became a story I tell new clients when they're nervous about trusting their infrastructure to someone else. The person managing your technology should be someone who builds things to last, not just to look impressive on a quarterly report. Someone who understands that behind every server and every security protocol are real people trying to do real work. And someone who has enough integrity that even when they have the power to burn everything down, they choose not to. Because here's the truth. I could have kept those systems locked down, could have held Berkshire hostage, demanded ridiculous fees, made them suffer. But that's not who I am. I restored their systems because it was the right thing to do. I charged a fair price for emergency work because that's what the service was worth. And I walked away clean because my reputation mattered more than revenge. The real payback wasn't in watching Damien fail. It was in building something better. Every time a client tells me they sleep better at night knowing their data is secure, that's payback. Every time one of my employees tells me this is the best job they've ever had, that's payback. Every time I look at our growth charts and realize we're profitable, sustainable, and built on a foundation of genuine relationships, that's payback. Damien tried to erase me because he saw my department as a line item to be optimized. He never understood that technology isn't about servers and software. It's about people. The people using it, the people managing it, the people whose lives get easier or harder depending on whether it works. That's what I understood that he never did. And that's why Cascade exists, while he's just another cautionary tale about executives who mistake confidence for competence. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd never set up that LLC, never purchased that domain, never created the leverage that protected me. Would I have just accepted the severance? Found another job? Maybe, probably. But I like to think that eventually, one way or another, I would have ended up here. Building something mine. Creating something that reflects my values, not just someone else's bottom line. Maybe it would have taken longer. Maybe the path would have been different. But knowing myself now, understanding what I'm capable of when pushed, I think I was always headed toward this. Damien just accelerated the timeline. If you're facing someone who doesn't recognize your worth, here's what that year taught me. First, document everything. every project, every decision, every contribution. Second, understand your leverage. What do you bring that can't easily be replaced? What relationships, knowledge, or systems depend on you? Third, know your worth. Not in an arrogant way, but in a clear-eyed assessment of what you actually contribute. And fourth, be willing to walk away. That's the hardest part. It's scary to leave the familiar, even when the familiar is treating you badly. But sometimes the only way to find out what you're truly capable of is to stop settling for someone else's limited vision of your potential. The morning my badge wouldn't work, I felt rejected and angry and scared. By that afternoon, I felt powerful. Not because I wanted to hurt anyone, but because I finally understood that my value wasn't determined by whether Damien appreciated it. It existed independent of his opinion. That realization changed everything. So if you've made it this far in the story, thank you for being here. Thank you for caring about workplace justice and the idea that good people don't always finish last. Sometimes they finish first. They just take a different route than everyone expected. If stories like this resonate with you, if you believe that integrity and preparation can triumph over politics and power plays, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We're building a community here of people who refuse to accept that the loudest voice in the room should always win. Your support helps us keep sharing these stories, and we're incredibly grateful for each and every one of you joining us on the path to 8,000 subscribers. The Payback Office channel exists because workplaces need accountability, because the overlooked deserve their moment, and because sometimes, just sometimes, the person everyone underestimated turns out to be the one holding all the cards. My name is Mia, and this is my story. Not of revenge, of resilience, of recognizing my worth when someone else couldn't, and of building something so meaningful that the rejection that started it all became the best thing that ever happened to my career. Thank you for watching, and remember, you're more capable than anyone who's trying to diminish you will ever understand. Sometimes you just need the right moment to prove it to yourself. Thank you so much for reaching out and sharing this with us. We truly appreciate you taking the time to connect, as your feedback and support help us continuously improve.